Alright, let's talk about Russia. When you look at the news, it seems like Russia should be on the brink of economic disaster. The world has been watching closely, expecting the country to buckle under the weight of unprecedented pressure. For over 2 years, the world has thrown every economic punch at the Kremlin. Sanctions, corporate exits, and a costly war. Major Western brands have pulled out, trade routes have been disrupted, and the ruble has faced wild swings. On top of that, Russia's access to global finance and technology has been severely restricted. You'd expect Russia's economy to be in freefall, but on paper, it's actually growing. The numbers show GDP rising, unemployment staying low, and shopping malls still bustling with activity. It's a paradox that's left many experts scratching their heads. How is that possible? It's like finding out someone who eats nothing but deep-fried butter just won a marathon. The reality is both surprising and a little unsettling. The truth, Russia's growth is fueled by the war itself, a dangerous, unsustainable sugar rush. Military spending has skyrocketed, with factories running around the clock to produce weapons and supplies. This surge in government orders is propping up entire industries. The government is now the economy's main customer, employer, and cheerleader. State contracts keep businesses afloat, and public sector jobs are more important than ever. It's a top-down economy, with the Kremlin calling the shots. It's like a failing restaurant that survives only because the owner buys every meal. The money circulates, but it's not coming from real customers or genuine demand. Sure, the cash register rings, but the system is broken underneath. Many small businesses are struggling, and the economy's foundations are weaker than they appear. We'll unpack how Russia is keeping the lights on, the cracks forming beneath the surface, and what this means for the future. Infrastructure is being patched up, not rebuilt. Energy exports are still flowing, but at a cost. This isn't a miracle. It's a short-term fix with long-term consequences. The government is plugging holes, but the underlying problems are growing. Understanding this illusion is key to seeing what happens when the magic runs out. When the war spending slows or sanctions tighten further, the cracks could widen fast. The answer to why hasn't it collapsed is complicated. It's a mix of government intervention, war-driven demand, and creative accounting. But beneath the surface, the risks are piling up. Let's get into it and see what's really going on. Where's the growth coming from? The war. A third of Russia's budget is now military spending. Tanks, shells, soldiers. Factories that once made tractors now churn out armored vehicles. Economists call this a wartime boom. Government money makes GDP rise. But it's not healthy growth. The economy is now addicted to conflict, a one-trick pony whose only trick is destruction. Defense booms while everything else, housing, cars, consumer goods, gets starved. Skilled workers flock to weapons plants, leaving other sectors behind. This isn't sustainable. If war spending slows, the whole system wobbles. It's not innovation or consumer demand driving growth, it's destruction. Building an economy on war is a recipe for disaster, no matter what the numbers say. The growth is real, but its source is toxic. The illusion can't last. Now let's talk inflation. Something every Russian feels. Massive military spending means more rubles in people's pockets, but not more goods on shelves. More money chasing the same goods? Prices soar. Official inflation numbers understate the pain. Groceries and essentials cost more every week. Paychecks are bigger but buy less. Sanctions make it worse. Imports are scarce and expensive, so businesses pass costs to consumers. It's a double whammy. Demand pushes prices up, supply problems push them higher. Any wage gains are wiped out by rising costs, fueling social tension. The government fears inflation. It's the kind of problem that sparks real anger. Supporting a war is one thing, not being able to afford chicken is another. Inflation is the hidden tax everyone pays. Running a business in Russia these days? It's become a real challenge, and not just because of the economy. The biggest problem facing business owners right now is simply finding enough workers to keep things running. Walk into offices across Moscow or St. Petersburg and you'll see empty desks and silent hallways where there used to be bustling activity. The workforce is vanishing before our eyes. A huge part of the problem is the war. Hundreds of thousands of men have been mobilized and sent to the front lines. These are people who, just a year or two ago, were working in factories, offices, and shops. Now, their absence is felt everywhere, from assembly lines to boardrooms. But it's not just the draft. There's also been a massive exodus of skilled professionals, engineers, IT specialists, doctors, and scientists who have left the country. Some are fleeing the draft, others are seeking better opportunities abroad, and many simply want a more stable future for their families. Airports and train stations have seen wave after wave of young, educated Russians heading for the exits. The result? A severe labor shortage, especially in critical sectors like technology, science, and medicine. Hospitals, schools, and research labs are struggling to fill positions, and the quality of services is starting to suffer. Companies are now locked in fierce competition for the few workers who remain. Job fairs are packed, now hiring signs are everywhere, and business owners are offering higher and higher wages just to attract staff. The defense industry in particular is snapping up workers with big paychecks and bonuses. But there's a catch. Wages are rising much faster than productivity, which means that prices are going up too. Inflation is hitting Russian families hard, making everyday goods and services more expensive. The biggest paychecks are going to soldiers and defense workers, while teachers, doctors, and pensioners are being left behind. The gap between those tied to the war effort and everyone else is growing wider by the day. For many, especially the elderly and those in public service, income simply can't keep up with the rising cost of living. Their real purchasing power is shrinking and they're being pushed closer to poverty. The economy is splitting in two. On one side, the winners, those industries and workers tied to the war. On the other, the losers, everyone else. This growing divide is unsustainable and threatens the country's long-term stability. The labor shortage is crippling businesses, straining public services, and making it harder for the economy to recover. The gap between sectors is only getting wider. Russia's workforce is shrinking, aging, and becoming less skilled as more young people leave or are sent to war. The consequences of this demographic crisis are visible everywhere you look. In the end, the war is draining Russia's most valuable resource, its people. The loss of human capital is a problem that will haunt the country for years to come. Before the war, Russia's economy was tied to Europe, selling oil and gas, buying tech and cars. Sanctions shattered that link overnight. Russia pivoted east, selling discounted energy to China and India. This lifeline kept money flowing, but at a cost. Russia now depends on China for both customers and goods. Chinese imports fill the shelves, but can't replace Western high-tech equipment. Russia relies on smuggled or inferior tech, creating a long-term innovation gap. The trade shift makes Russia a junior partner to Beijing, losing leverage and independence. Short-term survival has come at the cost of technological stagnation. The pivot solved one crisis, but created a bigger one for the future. Russia's economic fate is now tied to China's decisions. The price of survival is dependence. The ruble's been on a wild ride, propped up at first by government intervention and strict capital controls, but now, despite those efforts, it's sliding fast. The currency's value has become a daily worry for ordinary Russians, as each dip means their savings and salaries buy less and less. The once stable ruble now feels unpredictable, and that uncertainty ripples through every part of life. Imports cost more, exports bring in less, and the weak ruble fuels inflation. Everyday essentials, food, medicine, even basic household goods are getting pricier. Shoppers in Moscow and across Russia are feeling the pinch, watching their wallets empty faster than before. For many, it's a struggle to keep up as prices rise week after week. Meanwhile, the government's war spending has blown a hole in the budget. Huge sums are being funneled into the military, leaving less for schools, hospitals, and social programs. The cost of conflict is being felt not just on the battlefield, but in every Russian home. Oil money isn't enough. Russia is running a huge deficit. Even with high energy prices, sanctions and reduced demand have slashed export revenues. The government's main source of cash is shrinking, and the gap between what it earns and what it spends is growing wider by the month. To fill the gap, the Kremlin borrows from its own banks and citizens and raids its national welfare fund. Ordinary people are being asked to buy government bonds, while state banks are pressured to lend more. The government is dipping into reserves that were supposed to be a safety net for hard times. That fund was meant for pensions and crises, not artillery shells. Now, pensioners and future generations are at risk, as the money set aside for their security is being spent on today's emergencies. Russia is burning through its savings to pay for today's war, leaving little for tomorrow. The financial reserves that once offered a sense of stability are dwindling, and there's no easy way to replace them. It's like maxing out credit cards and draining retirement accounts to pay the bills. The short-term fix comes at a long-term cost, as the country's financial future grows more uncertain with every withdrawal. This is a classic sign of an economy under stress. Businesses are closing, Unemployment is rising, and the social safety net is wearing thin. The pressure is mounting on families and communities across the country. The present is being funded at the expense of the future. Families are forced to make tough choices, cutting back on essentials and worrying about what tomorrow will bring for their children. The financial cushion is vanishing fast. If the current trends continue, Russia could soon find itself with nothing left in reserve, facing an even deeper crisis ahead. To fight inflation, Russia's central bank slammed on the brakes, raising interest rates sky high. Borrowing is now too expensive for most businesses and families. The defense sector keeps humming, but civilian industries are frozen out. Construction and small business growth have stalled. The central bank faces a dilemma: fight inflation or let the rest of the economy stagnate. One part of government spends wildly on war, the other chokes off credit. The result? A jerky, unstable ride for everyone. High rates may prevent hyperinflation, but they guarantee stagnation outside the war machine. The cost of short-term stability is long-term pain. The economy is being pulled in two directions at once. Wartime Russia is split in two. Winners, soldiers, defense workers and their families, flush with government cash. Losers, pensioners, teachers, doctors and workers in non-military sectors, struggling as prices rise. The divide is also regional. Military towns boom, others face cuts and neglect. Money is diverted from social programs and infrastructure to the war effort. Inequality is growing, fueling resentment and tension. National unity is eroding as prosperity depends on war. The government has chosen guns over butter, and the social fabric is fraying. The consequences will last long after the fighting stops. The war is creating deep, lasting divisions. Russia's society is being stretched to the breaking point. Russia's economy hasn't collapsed because it's running on wartime adrenaline. But this isn't success. It's survival at a huge cost. The future is likely a slow decline, stagnation, decay, and lost potential. The break with the West is permanent. Russia will fall further behind technologically. Reliance on China will deepen, turning Russia into a resource colony. War spending means less for education, healthcare, and the next generation. The brain drain is nearly impossible to reverse. When war spending stops, factories will close and unemployment will rise. The resilience we see now is borrowed from the future. The real collapse is a slow erosion, not a sudden crash. Russia's economic story is one of long-term decline, not victory.